Welcome, friend. I'm James, your host, and today we're diving into another captivating episode. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and get ready for a powerful story that's sure to resonate. If something hits home, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's dive in.
Caught in the LA heartbreak, my girlfriend's break turned into a one-night stand with Mr. Perfect. Throwaway, first-time poster here. English not my first language, so bear with me. TLDR at the end, I'm 21 Neem. So, we've been together for 4 years, and let me tell you, it feels like a lifetime packed with the kind of ups and downs that would make for a dramatic movie script. When we first got together, we were young and reckless, wrapped up in that intoxicating rush of first love. Our hearts raced as we navigated the exhilarating, uncharted waters of teenage romance. Those early days were filled with stolen kisses under the stars and whispered secrets exchanged in the glow of streetlights. We explored each other with an innocent curiosity that only teenagers possess. I still remember the first time we kissed, how her lips felt against mine, like a soft spark igniting a fire inside me. She was genuinely turned on, her eyes lighting up with each moment of intimacy, but we never went all the way. To her, her virginity was a sacred gift, the one thing she felt she could offer me that no one else could. I respected that deeply. It felt special, like I was holding on to something precious, something she would never share with anyone else. Our connection felt unbreakable, forged in the fires of youthful passion, and I thought it would last forever. But then, around 2 to 2.5 years in, things began to cool off. The chemistry that once ignited our relationship seemed to fizzle out like a dying candle flame, leaving behind a hollow shell of what we once had. The passionate makeout sessions turned into quick pecks, and the deep conversations we shared morphed into awkward silences. I remember those nights when we'd lie together in bed, her head on my chest, and the conversation would drift into mundane topics. It felt like the intimacy we once had was slowly evaporating, replaced by a comfortable but hollow routine. Touching and oral became rare commodities in our relationship. Moments we once savored, now feeling more like distant memories. I tried to spark the flame again, to reignite the passion that brought us together, but it felt like pushing against a brick wall. Every time I initiated intimacy, her reluctance was palpable, and I found myself questioning what had changed. It was as if we were two ships passing in the night, unable to find our way back to each other. I could sense her pulling away, the emotional distance between us widening with each passing day. I loved her deeply. She's smart, beautiful, and has this incredible spirit that drew me in. So I never made it a deal breaker. I was convinced that our love was strong enough to weather any storm, that we would find our way back to each other if we just held on a little longer. Then, 2 weeks after our 4th anniversary, she drops the bombshell. She feels trapped. My heart sank as I stared at her, bewildered. I never saw it coming. Her idea of being trapped was that she felt guilty for going to concerts without inviting me. But here's the thing. I always encouraged her to go out, to live her life, to hang out with her friends. I wanted her to be happy, to enjoy life outside of our relationship, and I had no intention of stifling her freedom. Yet, there she was, looking at me like I was the one holding her back. I couldn't help but feel blindsided, like she was searching for an escape route from a relationship that I thought was solid. I listened, my heart racing, waiting for her to say she wanted to work things out, but the words I heard instead felt like a dagger. The silence that followed her confession hung heavy in the air, suffocating me. I could feel my insides twist into knots, panic clawing at my throat. She couldn't take the weight of what we had become. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to be tossed aside. We talked it over, and against my better judgment, I agreed to give her space. But inside, I was crushed, like someone had shattered my heart into a million tiny pieces. I thought we'd work through this together, that she'd realize she made a mistake and come back to me, but the reality was far more devastating. As she spoke, I felt the walls of my heart closing in, suffocating me with the knowledge that our love story might be coming to an end. The break was hell. I was a ghost of myself, barely functioning at work, my mind clouded with doubt and despair. My colleagues noticed my distracted demeanor, but I brushed it off with forced smiles and half-hearted replies. Each passing day felt like an eternity, my thoughts consumed by visions of her living her life without me, laughing with friends, going to parties while I sat alone in my apartment. I'd catch myself daydreaming about the way she'd smile or how her laugh would fill a room, and then the realization would crash over me like a wave, dragging me back to reality. My family noticed the distance, the sadness in my eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to share the chaos swirling in my heart. I felt like I was living in a surreal nightmare, going through the motions but never truly awake. It was as if I were trapped in a movie, unable to change the script. I was counting the days until she'd reach out, thinking she'd miss me enough to realize what she was throwing away. My phone felt like a lifeline, and I stared at it constantly, willing it to light up with her name. But as the days dragged on, that hope slowly morphed into despair, a sinking feeling that maybe she really didn't want me back. Every time I heard a notification, my heart would leap, only to crash when I realized it wasn't her. I felt trapped in my own mind, a prisoner of my thoughts, and I longed for the comfort of her presence, for the laughter we once shared. 3 weeks dragged on, each day stretching into an eternity. I was lost in a fog of confusion and longing when she finally messaged me, saying she wanted to talk. My heart raced with a mix of excitement and dread, the prospect of seeing her again igniting a spark of hope within me. I invited her over, hopeful that we could sort things out. When she arrived, I could see the turmoil in her eyes. Something had changed, and it wasn't just the weight of our situation. It was as if she was carrying the burden of her choices on her shoulders, and it was crushing her. She seemed fragile, yet there was a determination in her gaze, a desperate need to explain herself. I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation, ready to confront the truth and hoping for a glimpse of the love we once shared. My mind raced with possibilities, with questions I wanted to ask but couldn't bear to voice. What had happened during those 3 weeks? Did she miss me, or had she moved on completely? As I watched her fidget nervously, I felt the air crackling with unspoken words and emotions hanging heavy between us. Then it happened. She broke down crying, her voice trembling as she spilled the truth. She met a guy 2 weeks ago. After just 3 days, they had slept together. The room felt like it was closing in on me, and I struggled to catch my breath. My world shattered in an instant. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. It was as if someone had flipped a switch, and the warmth we once shared was replaced with a chilling reality. She said she tried to connect with him, but it wasn't nearly as fun as it was with me. My mind raced. She was telling me that some stranger had taken the one thing that was supposed to be ours. I felt a rage boil inside me, battling against the heartbreak that threatened to engulf me. It was like a punch to the gut, the betrayal hitting me with the force of a freight train. I fought to process this new reality, to make sense of how she could so easily toss aside everything we had built together. I felt my heart sink deeper into despair, an overwhelming sense of betrayal flooding my senses. All those moments we shared suddenly felt cheapened, tarnished by the knowledge that she had given herself to someone else so carelessly. The thought of her being with him, of sharing laughter and intimacy that once belonged to us, gnawed at my insides, and I couldn't help but feel like a fool for believing I was special. Now, here's the kicker. I consider myself a solid 7 or 8 out of 10, tall, fit, and I try to keep myself in shape. But this guy? A straight-up 10. Chiseled, charming, with that effortless confidence that makes women weak in the knees. The kind of guy who could make a crowd part just by walking into a room. I could picture him, the way he would stand, how he would smile, and I felt my stomach churn at the thought. She assured me that it wasn't about my looks, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was a consolation prize. I was left with the haunting image of her laughing with him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She had thrown away our 4 years together for a fling, and the fact that she had been with him so soon after our breakup felt like a betrayal that cut deep. I felt small and insignificant, like I was fading into the background while this other guy basked in the limelight of her attention. It made my blood boil, knowing that she had chosen someone else over me, that I had somehow been deemed unworthy of her affection. The idea of him being everything I was not made me question everything. My worth, my value in her eyes, and whether I had ever truly meant something to her. It was a twisted game of comparison that played on repeat in my mind, and with each cycle, my self-esteem took another hit. I thought about all those intimate moments we had shared, the promises we had made, and how easily they had been thrown aside for someone who barely knew her. After she poured her heart out, I couldn't even find the words. My throat felt tight, and all I could manage was a weak, "It's gonna be okay." I wanted to scream, to tell her how much she had hurt me, but the words caught in my throat like shards of glass. Instead, I asked her to leave, desperate for space to process everything. As the door clicked shut behind her, the silence in my apartment enveloped me like a suffocating blanket. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal. Each emotion crashed over me like a wave, pulling me under and forcing me to confront the chaos within. I could feel the tears threatening to spill, but I fought them back, refusing to let her see how much she had hurt me. I wanted to be strong, to show her that I wouldn't crumble under the weight of her choices, but inside, I was a tempest of confusion and pain. I sank into the couch, staring blankly at the wall as memories flashed before me, our laughter, our plans, the little things that had once made us so close. So, I took some time to reflect, pacing back and forth in my apartment, the walls closing in on me like a prison. I felt trapped, caught in a whirlwind of emotions that I couldn't escape. The walls seemed to close in on me, amplifying my thoughts until I felt like I was spiraling. I thought about our years together, the laughter, the dreams we had. I remembered the way she would smile when I surprised her with flowers, or how her eyes lit up when we talked about the future. Those moments felt like they belonged to a different lifetime, one that had been abruptly severed. But then I remembered the pain of her betrayal, the way it felt to hear her confess to something so intimate and painful. I didn't want to be her second choice, her backup plan. I deserve someone who sees me as their first choice, someone who wants to be with me wholeheartedly, not someone who thinks making love to me is a godly gift. I imagined a future without her, one where I could heal and rediscover myself. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been reduced to a fallback option, an afterthought in her quest for excitement. It was time to reclaim my worth, to assert that I wouldn't settle for anything less than the love I truly deserved. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, the times I put her needs before my own, and how little that seemed to matter now. I realized that if I stayed, I would forever be haunted by the specter of doubt and insecurity. Finally, I sat down and crafted a message. I poured my heart into it, trying to articulate everything I felt. Here's the translation. Hey, name, I don't want to keep you in suspense, so yes, this is my final breakup message. After thinking it over, I realized that if we picked up where we left off, the other guy would haunt my mind, and I'd always be paranoid about you doing it again when you got bored. I understand we were young and that you wanted to explore, but you lost my trust in that process. I respect your decision to take a break instead of cheating, but it still hurt. Thank you for the memories, and I'm sorry for any wrongs I did. I'm not mad, I'm just ready to move on. I hope you find happiness, and please don't punish yourself for this. Goodbye, OP. The message felt cathartic to write, yet part of me wished I could have delivered a more powerful, cutting blow. I felt a sense of relief wash over me as I hit send, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It was a definitive closure, a way to assert that I wouldn't be dragged back into a situation where my worth was questioned. I didn't want to linger in the shadows of her life any longer. It was time to step into the light. She replied with an equally long message of apologies, but it didn't change how I felt. Her words felt empty, like a hollow echo of what we once had. I could sense her desperation, but it only fueled my resolve. I was done. If it weren't for the support and insight from you guys, I might have taken her back, but now I knew I deserved better. The realization settled in my chest, warming me against the chill of betrayal. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, to find someone who would cherish me and never take my love for granted. I spent the next few days in a haze, navigating the complicated feelings that came with heartbreak. I reconnected with friends, trying to distract myself from the emptiness that lingered. We went out to bars, laughed over drinks, and shared stories that reminded me of the joy I once had. Each laugh felt like a step toward reclaiming my sense of self. I started hitting the gym more often, pouring my energy into physical activity as a way to clear my head. Each rep felt like a small victory, a way to rebuild my strength both physically and emotionally. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize that I could move on. I spent time reflecting on what I wanted in a relationship, what I truly needed to be happy. I started focusing on myself, picking up hobbies I had abandoned and reconnecting with my passions. I felt a spark of excitement as I explored new opportunities, opening myself up to the idea of love again, but this time with more wisdom and awareness. I knew what I wanted, and I wouldn't settle for anything less. Thanks for helping me see things clearly. Until next time.